Okay, welcome. Thank you for being here to another light conversation with Sherry Kay and friends. We are going to first just call in our spirit guides, our ancestors, all of our angels, and ask that they be with us here tonight and to help us raise our frequency, to help us to have words and expressions that help us for our highest good. So we thank them, we have gratitude, love, honor, and respect, and we ask for them to be with us tonight. So thank you. So as always, our intent is to have a conversation that is for the purpose of growing and healing and sharing our truth. We always want to have the intent to raise our own vibration, but also the vibration without. We also, I'd just like to remind everyone to just take what resonates and leave the rest behind. We're all on our own journeys. Just as a reminder, we're all unique, which we will talk about tonight. And so all perspectives are welcome here tonight. So tonight's conversation is about authenticity and creativity. And so it's been lovely just thinking about both of those things and how they go together. But first I figured that we'd talk about authenticity and what that is. And so just basically I'll just start with authenticity is just being your true self, right? It's being who you are on the inside, on the outside, because you can't, if you're pretending to be someone, then that's not really your true self. And so one of the things that we talked about last night when in a small conversation that we had was having that self-awareness. And how can you be authentic if you're not self-aware? And so really to be authentic, we need to know really who we are. And so that's one of the things that we have to do is like look at ourselves and to see, not only what our likes are, what we love to do, just every single different aspect about ourselves. And so if there's something that we don't like, or maybe like we talked about in the last video, when the ego pops in, that can happen. But that doesn't mean that you can't still be your authentic self. It just means that when that happens, that maybe you just need to take a step back and observe and look at yourself in an honest, true way, to be objectionable and without judgment. And as we do that, this is how we're going to be able to express our true self, our authentic self. And so before I go any further, if there's anything that you guys would like to say about what, being authentic or authenticity is, I would love to hear what you have to say, and we'll get the conversation started.
Lorena, you want to go ahead and allow a little bit of the conversation we had yesterday, because I think it kind of ties in here.
I know, yeah, go ahead.
So, won't go ahead, but we have a family member that I think is a great example of what we talk about when it comes to authenticity. And it's on Lorena's side, and it's him and Lorena, and it's an amazing thing. There's a couple of things. Is he's very authentic with her, which is a very big step. I think it shows a trusting relationship that way, because he's not very he's very, I won't say seclusive. He's social to people he knows, but only to a point. And so the fact that he can be very authentic with her, it is kind of a sign that he trusts her, which is very, very good. However, there's a point where there's times where I think he's authentic, but he's not he's not authentic with love per se. Like he'll say things to her, he'll say things out loud about her to her in a group, and it's things that he doesn't need to say out loud. It's something where it's something like he'll say, and he'll tell her, well, I'm being authentic with you, but it's something that was said out loud where other people, if they were paying attention, could hear it. And so he's being authentic, but he's not being authentic with love or respect, in a sense, if that makes sense. And so there's kind of that step so that's the reason we were talking about him, because like this is really, he's almost a very good example talking about authenticity, in that where he's very authentic in that way, but doesn't have the respect to do it in a way that could be the most loving. Not only that, he's very authentic with her when it comes to things, but one of the things we realize is he's not very authentic. And I think you mentioned it, being self-aware yourself. And part of that self-awareness is if someone tells you something about yourself, now if it's in love and it's something very not embarrassing, but something that doesn't need to be public, telling them in private and being authentic with them and being like, I think you could do this better, or this is how you're coming across. But one of the challenges, it seems like, and part of your self-awareness is if someone tells you something like that, you don't have to 100% agree with them immediately, but at least see their perspective and be like, okay, why is it they are saying this about me? Why is it that for them it's coming across that way? And at least look at it. You still don't have to agree with it. You still could be like, I don't agree with what you're saying, but being authentic enough with yourself that you at least see their perspective. And one of the things we see with him is he doesn't do that. It's almost one of those to where he'll see it in everyone else, but when we tell him that he's coming across a certain way, it's shutting down. And I think you have to at least be self-aware to at least look at it, to at least look at how you are coming across to other people, in a sense. And you could still choose to be okay with it. You could have someone being like, you're acting like a donkey, and being like, you know what? I'm okay with acting like a donkey. I could see how I'm acting like a donkey. But being aware that you're coming across that way, and there's a lot of people that don't want to have that hard look. They're not being authentic. They're not being authentic, and until they're authentic with themselves, growth can be very, very hard to come by. You
Well,
have anything to add?
I think it kind of goes with, to me, I have in my journey, I have not come across very many people who can take any kind of feedback, constructive criticism. But, and then that's why when I talked about this topic with you, Sherry, I was like, wow, this could be a really kind of fun conversation, because where is that kind of those guidelines of, okay, you know what, I don't really need to say anything there because it doesn't really matter. And that's just, they could take that and it could be offensive, or it might hurt their feelings, or, just is unnecessary, but it's still your authenticity. And so, you want to be genuine, you want to give, want to be yourself, and you want to be able to have that freedom, especially with the people closest to you, to say what you really think and feel. But then there's got to be, a little bit of gray area, of how to self-analyze before you express, and say it as kindly as possible, And then, but at the same time, I think the kind of really, really, really important key that I think is missed by a lot of people, including this family member that Chris is talking about, is being able to be authentic with others, but then also allowing others to be authentic with you, and taking it with, I guess, a grain of salt, so to speak. I taught my kids years ago, I said, always be appreciative when someone is willing to be honest with you and tell you how they really think or feel, and take a moment to think about what they said. And it doesn't mean you have to agree with them. It can just be something that you can be like, that's an interesting perspective. But at least they're willing to talk to you about it. They're willing to tell you. But then there's also people who take it too far to, the right or the left, and they're just like, I'm not going to tell them anything because that's, I'm not going to create a wave, or I'm just going to be as rude as I don't care if they don't like it. So, getting to that middle place of being genuine, authentic, and doing it as kindly as possible, and then also allowing them to be authentic, and you not taking it and being offended or being upset back at them. And then it goes into, which is, I'm just giving a little bit of points that we can address, that I'm interested in what you guys think, is how is, even if they tell it to you out of anger or frustration, or they're doing it in a condescending way, you're still response-able. I like breaking that word down into, responsible, response-able. You can respond, you're able to respond in a way that you are not going to be matching their energy, so to speak. You're just really going to think about it and think, okay, you know what, this is, for whatever reason, they're being honest, they're being authentic. I appreciate that, even if it's rude or it comes across rude or it triggers something in me. I'm thankful for their honesty. But most people I've found in my journey, haven't really analyzed that full picture. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. It's interesting that you brought all of this up, because so basically it goes back to the definition of authenticity, right? Or being an authentic person. And when I first started talking, and I said, it takes that self-awareness to be aware of yourself, right? And so if a person is coming off with a little bit of an agenda, so to speak, or saying something, although that's their truth, but if they're coming off in a way that isn't loving, then how is that really authentic? Because if we are self-aware and we're looking at our true self within, then that true self within is that self of love, right? That's what we're made of, is out of love. And it doesn't mean that we have to be all lovey-dovey or whatever all the time, but it does mean having that mutual respect, having the kindness, and the words can be done in a way. I like the word curiosity. So when someone is saying something, and it might be their truth, and they're coming off in, in a way that isn't very respectful, maybe the curiosity on our part would be to ask them the question, what, and to get to the root cause of why it is that they feel that way, or that they're saying that, or that why it's their truth. What is the root cause? Where does it come from? Because it is their truth, and like you said, it's like their authentic self, but is it really truly their true self within, in their authenticity? Because if it was, wouldn't there be that mutual respect? And so yeah, I think when you said response able, that really hit with me on the curiosity point, because the curiosity on our side, where we are trying to be authentic as well, but also trying to talk to this person who is saying their truth, but yet coming off that way. I think that it's just the way that we ask the question to get to the root cause, to see if they can open up and to see what it is that how it is really that they're saying it, or when it is that they're saying it, and how if it's not being respectful or whatever. And it's like Chris said, why does he even have to say it? Because it might be his truth, yes, but why does he have to say it out loud? And so there's the question, why? And the why is where you need to get to the root. And basically, when you look at the root of all types of, basically ego, when really that's what it goes back to. When someone is being disrespectful, even if it's their truth and it's what they believe, they totally believe what it is that they're saying. But if they're saying it in a way that isn't respectful or kind, then that really isn't their authentic self. But it's also a bit in their ego. It might be their truth, but it doesn't mean that it's their true self, their true authentic self. You know what I mean? That's my perspective on it as far as that goes. I know one of the things that was said to me was that the heart of authenticity is our vulnerability. And so when we're vulnerable and like truly vulnerable, that is when our authenticity comes out. And we had a little bit of a conversation on that last night as well. And the thing is if a person is saying their truth, they're expressing their truth, they're saying whatever it is that how they feel and what it is that they believe, but it's coming off in a disrespectful way, it needs to be turned around back on them. Why are they being so vulnerable to that truth? Or maybe they need to look at their vulnerabilities within that truth. Like I said, the root cause, right? When you go back to it. And basically, when you look at the root cause of most ego issues that come through, because basically that's what it is, even if it's their truth, if they're not and saying it in a loving, kind, respectful way, they're in their ego. And so that's where if they can look and see what that root cause is generally going to be 99.9% childhood trauma, right? And it's not our parents' fault. It's not their parents' fault. It's just things that we're taught from a very young age. It's all the experiences that we accumulate that makes us who we are. And it builds and builds and builds. And as we tell ourselves these same stories over and over again from the basic programming that we've had our whole lives, and you let that belief system kind of get in the way. Well, I'm going to say the truth. This is how I feel. I don't care if they like it or not. I'm going to say it. Now, that might to them be their authentic self, but is it really? They need to be vulnerable and look at where that's coming from. Where is their truth coming from? Where is their feelings, their emotions that are coming up to make them feel that way, or to express themselves in a manner that is disrespectful? And so I just kind of wanted to put that out there because, when a person talks about being authentic, I think there's a little bit more to it than just stating your truth. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and I think, okay, no, I know. So the more that I have grown into the more awakened person that I've become, over the last 23 years when I first woke up, to breaking out of religion, seeing things from the one God love, universal love, pure love, not just third dimensional love. It's been like a school, school of hard knocks. And so I've been there, it's kind of a process because I wasn't always authentic. I was shy. I was always looking for approval outside of myself, didn't really even know myself. And so once I started learning about who I am and what I am, and then I started to become more authentic, but it was hard. It was, it was something that took me practice and time, and I wasn't always, and I'm still not always good at it. And so that's where, nowadays I have a lot more compassion and love when someone takes the time to be vulnerable and tell me their truth, even if it comes across condescending or if they're angry. My first response is usually trying to communicate from the heart and say, okay, I appreciate that perspective. Or, occasionally I get triggered right back, and then I'll instantly go, and clarify, oh, wait a minute, I'm recognizing. So you'll learn, I think, that over time, it's something that takes practice. And so for this person that was being authentic with me in front of others, they truly thought that he really truly thought that he was helping me, because now I can be aware of what others might think of how I'm coming across. And so, when you're really coming from love, you are quote unquote teachable. You're able to self-reflect. And even if they give it to you in a way that the delivery is messy and hard and doesn't feel good, when you really come from that pure love, you can actually just have compassion for the fact that they are being vulnerable, and you can thank them for that. But what happened then is I did that. I said, thank you so much for being honest. I shared my truth back. And he looked at me like, okay, whatever. And then I pulled him aside later and I said, hey, no, that was my truth. That is my truth. I only speak my truth. And he's like, that's true, you do. And I said, the way you came across was condescending. And instantly, where he's at in his spiritual journey of learning how to come from love, he's not, because of, whatever life experiences or whatnot, as how you get to that pure love. It's like I said, you have to practice doing it. It's not something, I don't think, that comes easy, because of all the programming that we've had with going to school and trying to fit in and trying to have your friends like you, the teachers like you, your parents like you, you want to be liked. So it's not easy to always appreciate when somebody's authentic with you, especially if they're not doing it in a loving manner. But when you come from pure love, it's just this journey of recognition that there's a pathway that you take to get there. And so I was patient, and I could see that when I gave him feedback about how he delivered it to me, he got angry and immediately was like, fine, then, I guess I won't be so authentic with you then. And I just thought, no, you got to give and take. You got to be able to, receive it as you give it, but it still comes from that experience of how am I responding to him or whoever that's being authentic with me. I guess it really, the greatest gift you can give anyone is appreciation for their honesty and patience, while you recognize that they are doing their best, that maybe they really think they're coming from their heart and just helping you, even if it's condescending or rude. And you just look at them like, well, that you're getting there, you don't have to say that, right? But you're learning, you're kind of becoming aware that they're doing their best to at least be honest with you. And you see kind of the bell curve that they're learning how to be, maybe come from higher states of love about it. And the best way to do that, I think, is example. But that's why I love this topic, because it's not black and white.
Oh, I agree. I agree completely. Chris.
You jump in.
Yes,
I'm going to
please.
acknowledge. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Michelle.
She's maybe driving.
Mhm.
Anyway, I was going to get.
No, I'm here.
Oh, hello. So we're talking about authenticity, and they brought up a couple points where I just wanted to talk about Buddhism and what they call the true Buddhist nature. And it's without the stories, it's your true Buddha nature. And the story of the leaf, as the leaf falls from the tree, it shows both sides. It's not just falling with one side showing it, it shows both sides. The hardest part for me is to let go of the stories and who I think I am. That's ego. But I'm not letting go of all of my ego because that's there to protect me. But the stories that I tell myself who I am keep me from my true Buddhist nature. Now, when somebody is in their growth pattern, they're going to show where they're at. And our job is to not try to change them or excel them or train them if they don't ask for it, in my opinion. And so I just accept where they're at on their station or on their journey. And then if they do cross boundaries, then you have to maybe be the one that sets the boundary, like with this relative. You need to set a clear boundary where it's understood by that person, no matter where they're at in the station. But yeah, just showing your true nature and show both sides. That's been hard for me to show both the shadow and the light. But without the shadow, there is no light.
Yes. And
That's
when someone comes to you with any kind of, it's the bigger picture of the whole life experience, you know, you have love and compassion for their experience, and you just see things from a perspective of love and with as much as possible without judgment. When you get to that point, then it just makes everything go with more ease. You know, no matter what comes at you with their authenticity, I think my main goal is to get to that Buddhist status where you can just be, and as long as they're not crossing a boundary that's hurtful or harmful to you or others around you, that you can just have that love and compassion and appreciate where they're at. I like that a lot.
Yeah, it really is. When we think about it, it's just not. It isn't only someone else's authenticity and how when they're coming at us with their truth, but also our own authenticity, right? And I liked what you said, Chris, about showing your light side and your shadow side. That is what we need to do, because that is who we are, and that is our authentic self. And so to hide one or the other would be hiding our true authentic self. And so how can we be authentic if we're hiding a part of us? And so through our expressions, what in any way that may come across, I think that is being authentic.
And on another note, just because it just triggered a thought. It reminds me of authenticity when you are a healer, quote unquote healer. A true healer, an authentic healer, helps you remind you of your own power. That's just what that reminded me of that allowance for them to be who they are. And, I think that when you're in authentic self as a healer, you are just empowering them and reminding them of their own power. And you can become the amplifier, the magnifier, the reminder. You can help assist their own power. If the battery's, down, you can help charge their battery. But I think that's an authentic healer. And that just reminded me of that.
Yeah, I think sometimes when, uh, well, when we, if we are inauthentic, not being authentic, then I think that's when we need to look at ourselves. That's when we need to observe ourselves, and we need to recognize when that happens. And that is how, like you said, we learn. You know, if we're truly in a vulnerable, authentic state of mind, if that's what we truly want, then that's what we'll do. And so when the ego or whatever comes out that may be inauthentic and it's something that you would like to see different in yourself, then that's what you need to do, is look at that objectively and without judgment, because we've all been there, right? But then we don't need to judge ourselves harshly for it. We need to accept it. Now, accepting it doesn't mean that we consent to it, but it does mean that we can take the steps needed to change what we want to change. And it's like you said earlier, Lorena, it's not something that happens just automatically, or you know, one day you wake up and you're just this authentic self, and that's the way it's always going to be. It's like exercising. You have to go at it a little bit slower, and you have to like work up to it. And as you keep exercising that authenticity within, it just keeps growing, growing bigger, bigger, stronger. And then pretty soon it's just like so easy because it's just who you are.
Oh my goodness. And that reminds me, I think that we talked a little bit about this yesterday, and then Chris, you and I talked a little bit about this last night. So if I don't recall something, then you know you can chime in here. That comes back to willingness to not have attachments if you're going to be authentic and live the authentic journey, because I think attachments can be kind of the block to your authenticity. And so if you are, you know, well, I don't want to lose that person, because if I'm authentic with them, I might lose them. And then what? I'm going to be sad. And so that comes to going back to your self-love and, you know, being willing to look, if me being my authentic self doesn't work for you, I will love you forever, but that just means we're not compatible anymore wherever our life journey is going. And that right there is a simple concept, but boy, that is not an easy one.
No, it isn't. You know, I like that you brought up the attachment, because I think some people think of attachment as maybe something, you know, an attachment within or physical, or, you know, something specific to them. An attachment can be anything that, from even through the ego, where you, like you said, we just all want to be liked or loved or respected, or, you know, whatever the case may be. And when we have that kind of attachment and caring what other people think about us, then that will take away from our authenticity. Because if we're caring what they think about us, then we want to be what they want us to be instead of who we truly are. And I think that's really important for authenticity to think about. And so it's also like what you said, Lorena, it's one of the hardest things to do, because you will lose friends or family members. And the thing is that true friends will celebrate you for your authenticity. And so let your vibration, your frequency rise, and let those that rise with you be around you, you know. And for those that we love and maybe don't have that same perspective on authenticity, and they think it's just their truth and the way that they want to state it or say it or express it, then I also agree with being the example. And then, like you did, you know, you went off to the side and with him and talked to him in private and told him, you know, that just wasn't a true statement because of this. But you didn't do it in front of everyone. You didn't make him look bad. You didn't like have to defend yourself or anything like that. Because if you're defending yourself in front of everybody like that, then are you really being vulnerable, or looking at the vulnerable side of it? And which I think you did perfectly by going to him and talking to him in private and telling him your truth, and that that is truly who you are, and that and that it hurts that he would say it that way. And even if he didn't like what you said right in that moment, I think that he went away and thought about it, and it will affect him for a very long time, I'm sure. So that's what I wanted to say about attachment. That belief system, like we talked about, where it's the stories that we've been told our whole lives, and it's the stories that we keep telling ourselves. And those are the stories that we need to let go of, because we all know that belief system stands for BS, right? And so time to release that attachment and to be truly who you are. And it's that loving, compassionate, patient person that you are inside, the kindness that you are truly. And as we express that more and more, like you said, the example will be set, and others will see that, and that is truly how we will get the respect. And if they don't see it and they don't like it, then that's where we release that attachment. I know it's easier said than done for some of us, because some of those people mean a great deal to us. But we really need to have our own self-respect. And like you said earlier in the conversation about boundaries, right? And so by setting those boundaries, and so, maybe the relationships can still be there, but with those stronger boundaries in place. Because I don't think, that it is a good idea for us to change our way of being who we are authentically, how we express ourselves, because someone else thinks they perceive it in a different way than what we do, right? So everyone has their own perceptions, right? That's what it goes back to. And so, that we just have to let them have their own perceptions, but it doesn't mean that we need to change because of what they think. Not that is what we need to release, going back into that vulnerability, because it's hard. And we can be vulnerable in a way that, where we show our dark side. Oh, it might bring shame. Oh, they're not going to like that. Oh, they're, not going to like me, or whatever. But still, if that's who we are, we need to be vulnerable enough to show that. And that is truly being authentic. And so I like the conversation, because it does take both aspects of it, the dark and the light, and puts it out there. And I think that's truly who all of us are, right? Without the dark, you can't have the light, like Chris said earlier.
Well, and really, I think there's so much fear. A lot of the things that make people not be their authentic self is a fear. They're afraid that someone will see their weakness, and I think, for myself, I don't like anyone seeing my weaknesses, because I worked so hard to become the person that I am. And, I've got so much to give and to love and to share that, we're all kind of brought up in our societies to not let the shadow side be the face, the face of who we are. We want our good side to be the face of who we are to everyone. And so if somebody sees my shadow side, or my part of me that I'm not proud of, then they're going to judge me, and I'm going to, then that comes down to self-confidence. And how much do I love myself if they do look at me like that? And so this kind of goes down a little bit of a rabbit hole on fears of being judged. Maybe, starting with yourself. How am I going to judge myself if someone looks at me wrong? Or if I do something and then they look at me differently, and my relationship changes because now they've seen my shadow. They know I'm not perfect now. No. And now they might not like me as much. Yeah, and maybe I don't like myself as much. And so then it can lead you down your own, journey of I don't even like myself as much if I hurt somebody else. And so then it's another way that you stop being authentic because you don't like who you become, and then you get sad and you don't want to feel that either. And so, I think the biggest thing that we could work on is really understanding what self-love is, because that's going to be the pillar, the foundation of being able to make it through being authentic with everyone else and not being afraid.
Right. I agree with that so much. And that's basically where it comes into self-talk, like we talked about before in an earlier video, when that self-talk is a good thing, because we can just turn ourselves around. It's okay to talk to yourself and talk you right out of judging yourself, talk you out of not liking yourself. I mean, because that is not self-love. And so the self-talk can really be instrumental in that way. And it will help us to make those different choices as we do come in with that self-love. And it just takes one step at a time, right? Did you want to say something, Chris?
Yeah, I was gonna just talk about the programming. So this is on such a primal level that as we were a tribe, we were all in a tribe. Just how important it was to fit in and be accepted, because if you were left behind, you were left for dead. I mean, that was our survival, was the group. And it's hard to override that. And that acceptance, but just realize it's part of the hardwire that we have. We're hardwired for that over so millennial of that tribal living. And if you were misbehaving or if you were in trouble, you were banished and you were sent out to die. And so that drive to be accepted as part of the group and a contributing force, is really strong. I mean, it's in our DNA, it's in our past.
Right, because even meeting you two Ravens, you're the one who brought me into this beautiful soul group. And I was going through a kind of a dark night of the soul again. I've had several through my authentic journey. Really that's the pinnacle of why I would go through some of those dark nights of the soul, because I've lost a lot of friends and family because they don't play the authentic game. And
we were a death class. We were at a class about our death.
Right. I had come to the point literally of surrendering and saying, okay, I want to die the best way possible. And I want to give as much of my goodness as I can before I go. And so I went to this death class, and it was just this beautiful perspective of how to peacefully pass and what 10 steps to do. And I thought, oh, that sounds awesome. That's what I'm looking for. If if it's my time and I'm tired of being alone, quote unquote alone. And instead of embracing it, because there's duality, there's positive, negative, and everything, I would go through the positive side of being alone is you don't have interruptions and distractions from you and source. And that's why I've been able to meditate and take in a lot of concepts and downloads from source and to grow and become who I am, is because I haven't been distracted by a lot of people or places or events. But then it gets tiresome sometimes being alone, and that's what a lot of people, that's one of the number one fears, is being alone. And that's one of the number one contributors as to why people don't want to be authentic, because they recognize or they've lost somebody before and they're like, oh my gosh, no, I don't want to ever do that again. I don't want to lose anybody else. And I just kept being a warrior, whatever the female version of a warrior is. But I would just fight through it, and just as kindly as I could still be my authentic self. And I remember a quote that said, I would rather have 1 quarter than 100 pennies. but the concept of I'd rather have, one solid, real, true, authentic relationship and versus 100, people who are just gonna put on their best face and they're not gonna be authentic with me. Because I've experienced that before too, where, people will, the concept of, when you've got someone who kind of talks about someone else to you about someone else, and they're like, can you believe so-and-so did this or this or this or that? And, now, if anybody ever does that to me, my first thought is, wow, what do they say about me to someone else? It depends on how they do it. Now, if they're coming from love and they're just saying, boy, I just really need to get this out, and I know I can trust you, and I'm just coming from my heart, I'm not trying to judge them, but it's really triggering me. Now, that's a different way to approach it. But if somebody just sounds like, can you believe? And I mean, they're just building their ego. So, that is one reason why people are afraid to be authentic, is they don't want to lose anybody else and be alone. So, this just going back to, I was going through that dark night of the soul because I had lost, literally, come to a point in my life where I was recognizing family members and very close friends that I'd had for, decades were not vibrationally matching where I'm going and what I'm moving toward. And they weren't being authentic with me. And they were just saying what I wanted to hear. And the more you are authentic with others, the more you recognize when someone's not in their authentic self too. And so I just lost that desire to want to be around people who I could tell were not genuine, family or friends. But boy, that'll take you through some of those dark nights of the soul of, oh my goodness, this could mean that I'm by myself, or, I'm going to be alone. And that comes back to what you're saying, Chris, that, we're not designed as human beings to be alone. We are designed for community and cooperation and working in a tribe. And so that's why, you got to figure out, how can I be kind, loving, and find my tribe? And so when I went to this death class, I literally surrendered to Source, and I said, okay, I've got all this wonderful stuff that you've downloaded through me and to me, and I've listened and I've applied, and I've got the personality to share this with others, but I'm alone. And so then Two Raven says to me, literally that day after the class, he came up to me and we just had a vibration where it was such a good match. And he says, you need your soul tribe, don't you? And that's long story short, but oh my gosh, just tears. And, when you're willing to let go of whoever's not resonating with you anymore, no matter how hard it is, and no matter how alone you feel, and you trust and you let go, someone like Two Ravens here, Chris, will show up, and your soul tribe magically appears at that right time.
Oh, that's
And then
beautiful.
I was at the bank to connect the dots. Sherry comes in the bank. She tells me the same thing. I tell you, I mean, Sherry, you started this.
Well, I went into the bank and I got into the bank line, and I was standing there behind Chris. I didn't know him. And very slowly he turned around and he looked at me very slowly. And it was as if he felt my energy. And then he commented on a necklace that I had on. It was a selenite with the turmoil. And then he showed me his, and he had on a piece of moldavite. I was like, wow, that's pretty powerful crystal you got on there. And so we just chatted for a couple of minutes, and he just said, I knew you were a light worker. And then I said, well, give me your phone number and you need to come to our group. And the rest is history.
It is truly come as you are and be yourself. And I want Michelle to talk. She hasn't talked yet. Put you on the spot. Talk about authenticity. Your heart.
My name's
Your
Michelle,
heart,
and
you
I'm
show
an
it.
addict.
You you showed me both sides of that sword, Joan of Arc.
There's my authenticity right there.
Michelle,
Oh.
you are probably one of the most authentic people I know, and I have so much
Thank
respect
you.
for you because of it. You express your dark side and your light side. You show us both parts of you, and I think that is just the most beautiful thing ever. And truly, from the bottom of my heart, I just so much respect and love for you, woman.
Thank you so much, all of you. It's funny how, my higher power, God, divine, universe, love, like puts people in my way, right? And here I am. I really appreciate that compliment because I hate showing my dark side. Like, it's scary, it's vulnerable, and I am so afraid of being alone. I feel alone even though I have a lot of people and in my tribe, right? This is a hard discussion for me in some ways. But I do feel that if I now haven't all, I would say just in this last year, I've really worked on being open and willing. And it's painful sometimes because, like my mom doesn't agree with a lot of the things that I've come to believe. And that's hard being a codependent. I'm very codependent. I'm getting sick, so I'm sorry. But I don't have COVID, yay. But yeah, I've just been listening to all of you and been thinking about some relationships that I've been in and True Ravens, I had to be my true authentic self, put the spike strips out.
Chop, chop, chop.
um, and I'm learning to have a voice, and it's because of all of you guys in these discussions and in our groups but there is this little girl inside me that had to be that survivor for so many years. So yeah, I just appreciate all your guys' comments. And I'm in a situation right now where I've been involved with somebody for 3.5 years who's polyamorous, and they were very upfront with me, and I fell in love. Well, I love this person very much, but here's the thing: the more I'm becoming my true authentic self without the use of really hardcore mind-altering drugs, I'm beginning to see that it's not serving my highest good anymore. And I've been able to say no to seeing this person, and I've been able to say no to. So it's a beautiful thing, but it's painful. It's hard to let go. I have attachments. I know that for a fact. And like I've mentioned before in our talks, like that acronym that Two Ravens gave me, that RAIN, recognize, accept, investigate, and nurture. But I still get in that victim mode because that's what I've been used to being most of my life, and finally at 53, I'm having this awakening. It's scary, but I love it, and I love all of you guys, and you've helped me become my true authentic self. And I'm learning to speak in love, and that's the most important thing. Like I kind of had a situation this morning where somebody was texting me from stuff and they planted a seed of negativity, and I recognized it right away. And I thought to myself, don't plant that seed in my head, that I'm going to regret my job. They don't know me. I was just telling them a situation. And then I recognized that that they were just speaking of themselves, like mirrorings. I don't know how you guys verbiage it, but I'm recognizing these little things, and I'm like, whoa, that's weird, or and then I don't have to allow that seed to be planted in my head. Like I don't have to listen to that, and feed on that, because this depression and this anxiety and these panic attacks that I've been having, that it's fear. It's dark energy, and it doesn't want me to go into the light because I've lived in the darkness for so long. So that, I don't know. I just appreciate all you guys, and I'm learning that I don't have to have a million friends anymore. Whether I'm learning to accept that it's okay that I don't have to engage with not authentic people, and I just, and I love that. But, when I was clouding my mind with the hard drugs on a daily basis, I just was out there with everybody, like all the time. It didn't matter who they were, and I'm just blessed that my guides and my angels have protected me for this long. I could be dead or killed or all kinds of stuff. It's just a beautiful thing. But thank you, Sherry, for the
Oh,
compliment.
absolutely. Yeah,
That's all I got.
to me, it sounds like, you're taking your power back, and that really is a truly authentic thing to do. That's what we all need to do, is take our power back, bring that balance back within, right? And as we do that and we come into our authenticity, and regardless of it, if it's the dark that comes out and the light that comes out, as long as we're vulnerable, we see it, we make those changes, we do that self-talk. Everything, Michelle, that you just said is everything we've been talking about. The perfect example, really. It opens us up. And when we truly are our authentic self, or on that path to being our authentic self, I think that's what brings us into more of our creative being. And so I know the talk tonight was on authenticity and creativity, but I knew it was going to be this kind of a talk about authenticity because it has to be, because the way that it needs to be defined or realized or recognized, and the way that we each perceive it. And so I'm really thankful for the talk that we've had. But I'd like to just switch gears a little bit and talk about how our authenticity brings us into our creativity. And so I know that each of us has their own creative things that they do. And for me, like, I always thought I'm not a very creative person, but then I wasn't being authentic either. And so I think that when you start to become your authentic self and you start exercising that and having those recognitions, like you said, Michelle, and doing that self-talk and realizing that this is who I am, this is what I like, this is what I want to do, or whatever it is. And as we do that, that's when our creative juices start kind of flowing a little bit more, which I've realized. And where before I thought I didn't have a creative bone in my body. I can crunch numbers, but I didn't think that I was an artist of any kind. And now I'm just starting to open myself up to these different things that I really love, and the direction that it's starting to take me and what it is that I want to do. And so anyway, I just kind of wanted to segue into that creativity. I know Chris Two Ravens, your creativity has brought you into doing these, I think it's like a yoga surfboard type of thing that you've created yourself. Do you want to talk about that a little bit and your love for it?
Just for a second, then I have to get off. But our patients that have MS and Parkinson's, they can't go out and do yoga with the class on an uneven surface. So when they go outdoors, I was making the platforms for them to go underneath their mat. And I do have an interested party. I was supposed to set up at the yoga festival and just kind of let it all drop. when I started having some I got some news from the doctor that they had to do a procedure on me. And, I just let everything drop and just started basically preparing for death. And now I connect the dots. I see why. I meet Lorena. So, and then Michelle stepped up, and she was my driver and my crutch and my support for that time. So, I mean, for that to be my focus, it was something I didn't miss. It was something I gained. And so that project's on hold right now, but I have other projects in the works. I dropped off yesterday. That's what I was doing up at the property, some stage equipment so we could host our own events at the property with some light stands and some backdrops. And hopefully I'll be able to get a hold of a portable stage. So we'll see what happens. I'm working on it, but just kind of want to contribute to the group that way. But anyway, I just want to thank everybody for the conversation tonight. Sherry, I'll see you early. What time?
5:45 or 6.
5:45. Yeah, 5:45, somewhere right in there. Anyway, I love you
All
all.
right.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you,
Raven.
Yeah.
Bye,
See you in the
everybody.
morning.
You
Thanks
have my
for being
heart.
on.
It's so funny we talk about creativity, and I love how you use the connection here, because to be, I think, an effective creator, you do have to be authentic with what it is you want to be and who it is you are. Because one of the biggest is, because you being authentic, you then realize that we have always been creators, and we always are. We just have created unintentionally. And so now it's creating intentionally what it is we want to do. And we talk about creativity, and even a simple definition I read from Magic of Thinking Big, where he talks about, we think that creators are artists, or scientists, or anything in that field. And he's like, really, creative thinking is just people who find any way to better their lives and have better ideas for doing something in one way or another. And part of that being creative is saying you have for example, knowing that you have a goal or having an idea that you want to do something, but being okay that what the path that you think that it's going to take to get there may not be the best path. Allowing yourself to create other paths that you may not know right now, knowing that the canvas is empty. And just, I think the best example I can think of right now for showing the creativity that I had is, I would say, 10 years ago, I was working a job, and I'm like, I don't really want to do what we call house jobs or regular 9-to-5 jobs. This just isn't me. I want to be flexible and everything. And I just imagine myself just being able to drive the country and just explore and drive and see different states. And we have this program, for example, where most people would think, okay, I just have to make a bunch of money. I can go on a bunch of different vacations and do a bunch of things. And that's the way I'm going to be able to do that. And I learned somewhere, it's like, if you just don't focus on that, focus on the end point and allow whatever path it could be to be creative to get there. And sure enough, I ended up finding a job where I personally probably didn't make more than $45,000 a year during the 5-6 year stretch, which was less than what I was making. But I still got to travel across the country, visit a bunch of, basically drive through every state, visit all the states, and got to do that. Got to go to a bunch of sporting events, which was a big deal for me at that time. Go to a bunch of different places, which would have, for a lot of people, required a lot of money, for example. But I used my creative mind to create different options. And part of that creative options is knowing what it is you want, and then trusting the universe of knowing that there's more than one path to get there. And it doesn't have to be the path that you think it has to be. And part of the creativity, read this, I believe this was Psycho-Cybernetics, and I'm sure there was a person who talked about scientific discoveries. But this really goes with everything. He basically said, when you basically know that there is an answer, you don't have to know what the answer is, how you're going to get there, when it's going to happen, where it's going to happen, anything of that nature. You just have to know there is an answer, period. But when you know that, you are halfway there. You just have to have the awareness there is one, period. And allow your creativity, because we've had many situations, and I remember talking to Lorena on a couple things we were shooting after, and it's like, and she even said, she's like, I can't think of an option, I can't see anything. It's like, you don't have to. You don't have to, because I mean, how many stories if we look back and tell, where it'd be like, it's been an amazing story, like, and I'm sure probably even Sherry, your move to and what it is you're about to do, and then the path that you're about to go on. I'm pretty sure if I'm asking you 4 years ago, this is not the story you're telling. This is not what it is. That's exactly it. Most of our life events were not planned. We're not this, oh, this is what I'm going to do, this, and this. No, it was full of detours, U-turns, three-way turns, backdrops, back and forth, all of these things. And knowing that, we just have to know there is an answer, and then allow our mind and the universe and our higher selves to create what the best path is for enough, and know that we can create that, and know that there's going to be a path. We don't have to see what it is yet.
Beautifully said. Yeah, I love that. It's like going with the flow, right? And
Absolutely.
you can set the intention. You know what you want to create. You put that intention out there. You are the co-creator. You're doing it, but you just don't know what it's going to look like in the end. You just it's going to be something, but you just let it go. Let it be whatever it's going to be, and it does. It comes to fruition, and it's a beautiful path of creativity. I love that, Chris. Thanks.
Well, and I think a couple key concepts that tie in with authenticity and self-love, which is really the foundational pillar for authenticity, because then you can be authentic with yourself first and trust that the right people will be in your life at the right time when you love yourself correctly. But creativity is also having that non-attachment to what other people think as well. When you're your creative self, you can have less attachment and fear of what other people think. You love yourself, and you're like, this is for me. I am a creator creating, and I'm now you're creating because you want to create. And then the more you create, because it's just fun to create, the more things you'll create. I know that for me, I had that same thing, Sherry, where I thought, I'm not creative. That's not my strength. There's people who that's their gift. That's their talent. That's not me. And so, but then the more I began to love myself, I realized, oh, I'm creating differently. And what I do create, when it comes from my heart, because I'm just having fun creating, then now it's something that is a beautiful creation. It's authentic creating, and now it's fun. It's amazing how it turns out, and you just lose attachment to what other people think about it more. So they all kind of tie in.
Oh, I love that. Also too, just thinking about on Sunday, when we met as a group, the creativity that Michelle brought to the group was amazing. And so the first thing I noticed, when she walked in dressed as a clown, that it was the cutest outfit I've ever seen. It was completely not what I was expecting. Super creative. I absolutely loved it. She was just the perfect clown.
Mhm.
Then after that, the next thing I noticed is that she is totally hilarious. She was so funny. She she comes over and she says, I went to the market the other day and got a bunch of freebies. Do you want one? And she has this little bee, the letter B, a little styrofoam, and she starts to give them away. And it was so funny, and it didn't end there. But not only that, then she does face painting, this professional clown that she is. And she did some amazing work on those faces. I couldn't believe it. It was just like so good. And so to see Michelle's creativity just really come out from the moment she walked in the door, the whole time I was there, was really amazing. So I really love your creativity, Michelle. And I wanted to just mention that. But also too, I listened to this guy the other day, and he was talking about his own creativity and the kind of art that he does. And he basically said that it's really based on love, LOVE. And then with each of those letters, he brought home the points of how he brought his creativity in, his authenticity into his creativity. And so he said, basically the first thing you need to do is just figure out what you love. Like, take all the things that you love and merge them together, and this is how you're going to create. And so, I wrote down some of the things for me, nature, adventure. I love puzzles. I love my spirituality. I love art, like all these different things, right? And so this is like getting me thinking about it. But I'll share what he said about the LOVE. Under the L, it was for learning. And that goes along with the authenticity that you were saying earlier, Lorena, is that, we have to be willing to learn if we're really truly being authentic to ourselves. He also said, but in your learning, that you also need to be in a state of play. So I really love that. He also brought up the word curiosity, which is what we talked about when we talked about authenticity, is that, being curious about where our vulnerability is, where our ego is, all of these different kind of curiosities. This is how we learn, right? The more supremely curious we are, the more we're going to learn. Then the O stands for ourselves. So give yourself permission to be yourself. And he said movement is really important. So, and then also to merge your loves. So list out whatever your loves are and then merge those together to bring through your creativity. And so I can see where Michelle's loves are because I saw her creativity, which I absolutely loved and admired. The V is for venture. So venture into the unknown and give it your all. Oh, I love that. That's totally me. And then he also said that, even in all the chaos, it can be magical. The chaos of art can be the magic. And so don't be afraid of the magic or the chaos that brings that magic, and just to listen to your heart. And then the E is for embrace. So embrace the mysteries of the art, but also your failures, because you never know when your failures are going to be embraced by others and can take you to places you had no idea it was going to take you. So it just, when you're in your creativity and you're in your moment and you're expressing yourself, your authentic self in that creativity, it doesn't matter if you think it's any good or not. That's just your ego. Just let it go. Embrace that. Even if you think it's a failure, embrace it, because it's something that is so beautiful. And I love that. He said that some of your failures can be some of your biggest successes. So I really like that. And so his motto was to follow your guiding star. And he called this theme The Regenerative Cycle of Creativity, and his name is David Popa. So I thought I would mention that. So I thought that that was pretty great, to expand, evolve, and transform, to come into your greatness and into your creativity.
I love that. That is so good. Wow. I remember when as a little girl, I used to love to do chalk art. Yeah, on like just a white piece of paper, and I would use chalk to do like landscapes, and then it just wasn't perfect. And I remember always striving to be perfect and to have my picture not have any flaws in it. And then I would crumple it up if I made one little mistake, or if it had any flaws that only I could see probably, or it didn't look as perfect as I knew it could. And then I get older and I recognize this abstract art, and I'm like, what? That looks like all my mistakes. And I was like, well, how is that art? And then I learned the concept. Oh, wait a minute. It's about their authenticity, and there's a lot of beauty in here. And I started to kind of study more about what that means. And so I love how you just allow what you love and let it come out, flaws and all. And it reminds me also of when you are, dancing, and you make a mistake, you make it a part of the dance. That's kind of that life concept of, just giving grace to yourself when you make a mistake on something that you're creating, and just allow yourself to be kind of, I think, instill humor even, and be willing to laugh at yourself without, judgment. It makes the creative process more authentic and more fun.
It does. That's interesting that you talked about the chalk art. I did that I think it was like the 2nd or 3rd grade. I absolutely loved it. And she taught us how to shade everything. It was so beautiful. But also this same guy that gave this breakdown of love, and through his authenticity into his creativity, David Popa, that's what he does. His art is like chalk art. He does it outdoors in nature. He does these huge murals, and they only last until the weather wipes it away. And so where he was in this, at this one point, was somewhere, probably in the Antarctica or somewhere, I'm not sure exactly where he was, but somewhere very north. And he did this portrait of, I think, his wife on these flat pieces of ice that were floating, in the water. And it ended up breaking apart. And but they have a drone, it comes over and it can take a picture of it, and still it was 2 pieces, and then the next thing you know, there was 3 pieces, and then it was just kind of broken apart. And he thought it was a complete failure at that point because it broke apart. But really, it ended up being a representation of the chaos that the world, and the fractured kind of world that we live in, and it exploded. So he thought that was his example of one of his failures becoming one of his great successes. But I also want to mention that on Sunday, that Michelle wasn't the only one that was creative, because most of us went there in our own creative little outfits and dressed up as Belinda had asked us to. And we had like 5 witches or more, and we had the Step Brothers, and we had butterflies and bats, and we had like all these different characters and all these different outfits, and so much creativity that was brought to the party. It really just was a blast being there and seeing everyone in their own creativity and what they brought to the table. And it was just a really great example of the kind of creativity that we can have just in an outfit, or even in the food. Like Belinda is such a wonderful cook, but she goes all out. So she had little spiders on the deviled eggs, and she had chips and dip, and it was a witch's hat, and the chips were the hair, and then the guacamole was the face, and then she had something else, the vegetables, as the face, and she had the little ghosts all over the cupcakes, and they were melting a little bit, so they were like sliding a bit and just looked so just perfect. So it really was fun to see all that creativity that comes out in different ways, whether it's food, face painting, our outfits, or just our expression of our authenticity. So I loved it. It was fun.
Oh my goodness. And you bringing that up with the ice and how that okay, so and how that just was a temporary thing. And so are you familiar with how the monks do mandalas? So there's a bunch of YouTube videos that you can watch on mandalas with the monks, and they will go out and they find their colors out in nature, and it's a very, very grueling, what's the word? It takes them a long time, and it's like they get the colors from the rocks and they have to grind it, and it's a process that is very time consuming. And then once they get all their colors and their powders, then they create this great big round table, and then they get these little tiny tools, and they use the art, and they go into this very meticulous, beautiful design, and they just start to it takes them days and days and days, and so many hours, and it's the most beautiful artwork ever. And then once it's complete and they've spent all this time on it, then they destroy it. And the whole concept is being in the now and enjoying it right now, and then recognizing that it's not going to last. And so it's just amazing. There's a lot of teachings just about the mandalas with the monks.
How important it is for us just to be in the present moment, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's part of our authenticity as well, is just being in the present moment. Don't worry about the past. Don't be anxious about the future, but just be in the present moment right now. And I think that was really brought out tonight, when Michelle was talking about, when someone says something to her and she doesn't have to accept that, where she would before, but she doesn't have to now. She doesn't need to think that. She doesn't need to let that seed into herself. And I think that when we are in the present moment, that also can be the perfect time for us to be in our creativity. Just let the rest go. Like Chris said, it doesn't matter, because it's just going to flow, and it's going to be something really beautiful in the end. And as long as you believe that that's what it's going to be. And that's really
Not
all
having
it-
that attachment, that's one of the other
I
things
was
that
just
they
about to
teach.
say that. It's like enjoying that creative process, enjoying what it is you are creating, but then not being attached to the finished product. Because there's so many people that will create something for themselves, and they then enjoy what it is they're creating, that they will do then everything they can possibly do to keep that creation. And when you try keeping that creation and trying everything not to lose that creation, there's that attachment. And so it's not only about creating, because we are creators, about creating what it is, but then not being attached to your final result. Michelle did those beautiful face paintings, but not being attached to the fact that those face paintings are probably not on most of the people that got them on Sunday. And being completely okay with that. And that's exactly it. They spend hours and hours and hours and hours. It is and I think the big word I was looking for was meticulous. It is a very meticulous project, very small grains of sand, and doing it perfectly in such precision. It is absolutely, I won't say painstaking, but it's very, very detailed. And then it's like, oh, it's very beautiful. And they're like, okay, cool. Just like that. And then they put the sand back into Blessed, and then put the sand back into nature, because it's exactly that. It's enjoying your creation and enjoying what it is you're creating, and then not being attached to the finished product.
Yeah, being in that present moment while you're creating. That's really what it's about, is the enjoyment of the moment of that creativity, right? Not necessarily the finished product, although that can be nice, but like you said, if you get attached to that, then that's where people, for some, may look at their art, whatever that is, and then they start nitpicking it. Oh, it's got this, it's got that, you know. Just let it go. Enjoy it. Let it be what it is. And if it's imperfect, so what? It's art.
Yes, and then that leads to another rabbit hole of attachments because I mean the Jews that a lot of them that got killed were the ones who were attached to what they had, their success, that the success they created for themselves. And they got the big houses, they got all the material things, and that was their, you know, their identity. And so they created this life that they weren't going to let go of. They were too attached to it and they wouldn't leave. And they were the ones who were captured. So, you know, that goes into creating, allowing, not judging, having fun in the process, and not being attached.
Yeah, being able to let go, right, of those attachments is really important. And that really is the only way that we can come into our authentic self. So,
Yes.
yeah, that was great.
Yes. Well, thank you for a wonderful another night of wonderful conversation.
Oh, thank you for all of you for being here. It was an enjoyment for sure for me. And I just appreciate everyone expressing themselves and just sharing in the different things that, you know, the different topics that we talk about. So I really do thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here. And until next week, I'll probably talk to you at some point through messaging. Maybe I'm going to be gone for a week. So if you have WhatsApp, you can get a hold of me. If you don't have WhatsApp, you won't get a hold of me, but I will have my phone off most of the week. So I'll see you next
Yay.
Tuesday.
Safe travels. Have fun.
Thank you. All right.
See you.
See ya.
Thank you.
Bye.